Hello and good morning, boys and girls. It is Miss Olvera. So we are week 8, day 4. So we are almost at the end. So today we're going to continue. Mr. Harrisson is Embarrassin, and I'll be reading chapters 8 and 9, right? Yes, 8 and 9. And then tomorrow I will be reading 10, 11, and 12. Okay, so let's get started. So chapter 8 is called Freaking Out. Suddenly, we were all sitting there in the dark, and the only light was coming from the candles on Elementary's birthday cake. For a few seconds, nobody knew what to do. It was scary. Everyone remain calm, said Mr. Klutz. The lights in the hall are out too, hollered Mr. Mackey. The computers in the front office are down, shouted Mrs. Patty from the back of the all-purpose room. Everything is down, said one of the other teachers. It's a total power failure. A blackout? said Mayor Hubble. Oh no, when the parents find out, they'll blame it on me and then I won't get reelected. Why is it that every time I come to visit your school, something bad happens? Asked Elementary. I've had enough of this. I'm sure the lights will come back any second, Mrs. Mentry, said Mr. Klutz. Let's not panic, said Mrs. Jaffe. I'm afraid of the dark, whined one of the first graders. I want my mommy, yelled some other little kid. Sheesh, get a grip. It was like the first graders had never been in the dark before. Those kids should take a chill pill. The only problem was that as soon as one of those little first grade munchkins started crying, all of the rest of the first graders started crying too. And then once all the first graders started crying, the second graders started yelling and screaming. And then once all the second graders started yelling and screaming, the third graders started freaking out. The world is coming to an end, shouted Michael. Run for your life, shouted Ryan. We're all gonna die, I shouted, just for the fun of it. Mr. Klutz was probably making the shut up peace sign with his fingers, but nobody could see it because it was too dark. Mrs. Mentry, are you okay? Mr. Klutz asked. No reply. Mrs. Mentry? Silence. You could hear a pin drop in there. Oh no. What do you think happened? Mrs. Mentry, where are you? Asked Mayor Hubble. Nothing. Where's Mrs. Mentry? Asked Mr. Klutz. Where's Mrs. Mentry? Asked Mrs. Jaffe. Where's Mrs. Mentry? Yelled Mr. Granite. Where's Mrs. Mentry? Everybody yelled. Mrs. Mentry was gone. So that's the end of chapter 8. Okay, chapter 9. It's called The Search Party. When all the kids realized that Elementary was missing, they stopped crying and yelling and screaming and freaking out. Everybody was worried about Mrs. Mentry. I'm sure the lights will be back on any moment, and we'll find Mrs. Mentry, said Mr. Klutz. But for now, I need everyone to stay calm. Calm? Who could stay calm when all the lights are out and a 90-year-old lady the school is named after has disappeared? Ella, the teachers were all saying, where are you? Mrs. Mentry? She was right here a minute ago, said Miss Coco, the gifted and talented teacher. I saw her standing there. Maybe she went to the bathroom, said Mr. Docker, the science teacher. Maybe she's hiding, suggested Mrs. Yonkers. Yoo-hoo, said Mrs. Laney. Miss Mentry, come out, wherever you are. This is a tragedy, said Mr. Klutz. How do you lose a 90-year-old lady? She's pretty tiny, said Mrs. Jaffe. She could be anywhere. We have to find her, said Mayor Hubble. If anything happens to Mrs. Mentry, the voters are going to blame me for it on election day. All the grown-ups were upset. Well, all the grown-ups were upset except for one, that newspaper reporter, Mrs. Lily. Now I have a story, she said excitedly. I can see the headline. Ex-teacher elementary vanishes into thin air. Police are baffled. Finally, I'll have the scoop I've been waiting for my whole life. Why don't you just go to a store and buy a scoop? I asked. Mr. Harrisson lit all the candles on the cake again. Now we could see a little bit. Mr. Klutz, he said, I think I know where Mrs. Metry might be. Where? She may have wandered down to the basement, Mr. Harrisson said. But to get her, I'm going to need some people. Why? Asked Mr. Klutz. I think she fell in a hole, said Mr. Harrisson. She fell in a hole? Somebody yelled. She fell in a hole? Somebody else yelled. She flew in a hotel? Somebody else yelled. Everybody was yelling all kinds of things. Crazy stuff that had nothing to do with falling in a hole. You say you need some little people? Mr. Klutz asked. How little? First graders and second graders might be too little, said Mr. Harrison. Fourth and fifth graders, they might be too big. I need some third graders. I volunteer, shouted Ryan, Michael, and Neil, the nude kid. We do too, said me and Alexia. I want to help find Mrs. Mentry too, said Andrea, who always wants to help grown-ups so they'll like her. Then, of course, Emily volunteered because she does everything that Andrea does. Good, said Mr. Harrison. Each of you come up here and take a piece of cake with a candle on it. We'll use the candles to light our way until the lights come back on. You won't see me. We get to have cake? Asked Ryan, who always is thinking about eating. Cool. Follow me, kids, said Mr. Harrison. And they went into the basement. That's the end of chapter 9, boys and girls. So tune in tomorrow. Make sure you watch tomorrow so you can see what happens with Mrs. Elementary. Okay, so tomorrow I'll read chapters 10, 11, and 12. All right, boys and girls, that ends our reads for today. I hope you all are having a terrific Thursday. Thank you for watching. Oh, and yes, I cut my hair. I needed to cut my hair. My hair was very long and that's why I always had it in a bun, because it was too long, and summer's coming, and in summer it is very what? It is very hot, especially down here where we live. Okay, boys and girls, I hope you have an awesome day, and don't forget to view tomorrow. Bye.